bare, raw human experiences. That is the Undisclosed podcast. With me, your host, Jazmin. Exploring the layers of human experiences and the journey that we all take together of life. I'm here with my guest, Diana, who is also my very close best friend.
My name is Diana. I'm a finance bro. Mother of two.
No, so on today we wanted to talk about breaking generational cycles, and especially when it comes to parenting and parenting styles. So I thought, who better else than to what would you be considered, Gen Z? No, millennial, right?
No, Gen Z.
Gen Z.
I'm also an immigrant parent. I wouldn't be considered first generation. Yeah.
Okay.
I read it somewhere.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh, tell us a bit about that.
So, like, if you're born in Mexico and you come here, even as a student, like, you're still an immigrant. You're not first generation. So, like, your kids and my kids are first generation. But we are immigrants. Like, immigrant students, immigrant mothers, parents and stuff.
Wow, I actually have not read about that.
Yeah.
But it makes sense.
Yeah, so.
I guess when, like, I say first gen, I mostly think about, like, education-wise. I don't think about, like, other parts, but in the sense of that's pretty correct.
You as a whole, once you stop going to school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, I guess diving into that, kind of losing yourself with one label, or
Yeah.
I would say I kind of sometimes lose myself in just myself as a student. Don't really think of who I am outside of that a lot. And I guess that you can relate to when it comes to being a mother.
Yes. So I was 15, but it was really, it's not real. Like, even though, like, I knew it's, like, that's not real. You know, it was just not realistic. Mm-hmm. It wasn't very realistic until, like, I was holding Max in my hands, you know? When you're holding, like, yeah, your belly can get big and everything, and you're buying baby clothes and getting the nursery ready, but it wasn't real until, like, he's physically there. I guess he was always physically there, but, like, physically out of you. So that's when it became real that he was here. Ultimately, it was very hard because I was young. I was in high school. But then also because...
You were 15, right?
16.
16, okay.
Yeah. But also because neither one of my parents was here because they moved back to Mexico. And so ultimately the only sibling that I have was my brother. But then he's 2 years younger than me. So he also needed to be parented in a lot of ways. So... You know, when I had Max, it wasn't just, I'm a mother of one. I was also, taking on the guardian role for Chato. Not just financially, but emotionally. You just have to be there for the younger one that you have, which was both my brother and Max.
So at that age, you were already basically parenting two?
Yes. That's 16, basically. Yeah. Parenting two. And school's great. School's never hard.
No, you were brilliant.
Yes.
Which, by the way, I admire you a lot for that. Just breaking those barriers. Because I know a lot of, like, to the school we went to, a lot of teachers had certain perceptions of students and stuff.
So even, ultimately you have a baby, you have those 40 weeks as a break. It's not 40 weeks. It's 6 weeks. 8 weeks? Whatever time it is. Of, like, maternal leave. So within those 6 to 8 weeks, I was still going to school to pick up homework. And then ultimately, we had, like, that Outlook thing where you could email back and forth. So I was still, turning in homework. I would go in after school to take tests. So even though I wasn't physically at school, like, I was still getting my work done. I was still, doing tests, getting everything turned in. Just because there wasn't a doctor's note to, give her a passing grade because she had a baby. And then ultimately every year, and I don't know, like, do you remember that board when you were walking that it would have all the students that had a 3.0 GPA or higher?
Yeah.
My name was always on that list. And there was always a sense of, oh, she's cheating, because like later on I was at school less and less, but I was still getting my work done. I was still doing my tests like outside of school hours. I would sometimes even go in on Saturdays to make sure that I did my test, even if I wasn't at school during school hours. So there was always, that sense. And I feel like some teachers always had that, oh, she's entitled. She doesn't, really deserve to take a test if she's not going to be here.
Yeah.
But, my schoolwork was always done. And I feel like a lot of teachers always thought that I was cheating, because it's like, how is she never here, but yet she's always passing?
That's definitely a conversation for another time, with the experience of teachers being so out of touch with students and what's going on in their personal lives.
Yes.
Because I'm sure most of them didn't know that none of your parents were around. It was just
Right.
you. It's like, no, you were parenting yourself and two other people.
Yeah. So, when I was younger, I was very selfish. So I wasn't really thinking of parenting styles, for instance. I wasn't ever thinking, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It was just a day-by-day kind of situation. I was still getting to know myself, getting to know Max. Obviously, he was a baby. And there was just so much going on that with my time I was very selfish. And you can talk to any young mom and they're going to say, oh, my kid is my life, blah, 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 blah. But in reality, behind closed doors, it's not true. They're very selfish. It ultimately wasn't until Daniel. Max he had just turned 2, like 16 days before, because they're very close in age. And I looked at Daniel, I'm like, oh my God, here's another tiny person. And even then, still very selfish with my time, very indecisive of what I wanted. It wasn't until like Daniel was a year old where I said, okay, well, what I'm doing clearly isn't working. It's time to, take a step back, be an adult about this, and figure out as we go. But it's also very hard to figure out your parenting style. It's also very hard to figure out what you want when there's a million things getting thrown at you. For instance, you have 2 kids, you have your brother, you have your relationship. At that time, we were also buying a house, car loans, college applications, scholarship applications. Like, it was just, everything was being thrown at you. It is just like really hard to take some time to figure out one thing when it was just piling on.
And I think that also comes down, I know a lot in our communities, it hasn't been until recently that I've seen that a lot of, obviously, people who are now our age that we went to school with, or just people our age in general within the Hispanic community, are taking the time to, either whether it's break those cycles or read more into parenting styles, which is a lot right now. A lot of the popular, I guess the more popular one which is gentle parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just I know that coming from families where their responses was to yell, hit, la chancla.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, that chancla is basically your sandal, your flip-flop, whatever
anything that can be thrown at you.
Anything.
Yeah.
The wooden spoon, the kitchen spoon, anything. Yeah. So, with that being said, how did you come across gentle parenting? Where did that journey begin?
Right. So, and it really, just as you said, it's breaking out of those cycles is really, really hard. So ultimately, growing up, if I did something wrong, we were getting hit, with physical things like belts, shoes, whatever was in hand, we were getting hit. So I always knew that I did not want to hit my kid.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was always just a little slap on the hand, a little slap on the butt, it wasn't until one day I like went to hit Max in the hand, and it was never hard, you know, it's just a tiny little slap, that he flinched. And when he flinched, I said, this is not working. We're not doing this anymore. And for me, as like, and other Mexican, like, older parents, not just Mexican but immigrant parents, it's very hard to break out of that cycle. So when you are learning gentle parenting, it's really hard, because you're also thinking about, I'm reacting like this because this is how my parents reacted on me when I was younger. So ultimately, the slap on the hand and the slap on the butt was, I wouldn't say it was really hard to
like stop doing,
but it was also like you had to stop yourself, because you know it wasn't good. So with gentle parenting, and it was a thing that I was doing for a while. I did not know it had a name or anything, but you think of gentle parenting and it's not just like, oh, I'm soft spoken. It's, you know, like, it's not that. So I feel like gentle parenting definitely still has those stereotypes where you see, you know, like, soft non-immigrant moms, like, oh no, baby, like, don't do that. But gentle parenting is sort of like that, but not like that. So gentle parenting is like, you're telling them not to do something, and then you're telling them not to do something, but you're not going to go over there and pick them up so that they don't do that. Like, you're going to tell them, please don't do that, because this is what's going to happen. So, like, for instance, don't jump on the couch because you might fall and you're going to hurt yourself. They're going to continue jumping on the couch. They're going to fall and they're going to start crying. And your job as, like, gentle parenting is not to say, it's not to, like, run over there and say, oh, are you okay? Are you okay? Or, like, see, that's what I told you was going to happen. Yeah. It's, you know, going over there and saying, are you okay? They're obviously going to say if they're okay or not. Most of the time they're going to be okay. You're going to say, see, this is what happens when you're jumping on the couch.
This is the result of that.
Yeah, what are we going to do next time? So you're letting them know the consequences of their actions, and then you're also using that as a teaching moment for them. Gotcha. And then ultimately, you know, a couple days later, they're going to be jumping on the couch again. But this time, they're going to be safer about it. And then also, you know, with a lot of, you know, the parenting that we had wasn't just, you know, physically getting abused. It was also
a lot of verbal.
Yeah. And, like, verbal, you know, saying bad words to them, you know, just degrading them. But then also, like, the emotional part was they would just leave you there to comfort yourself.
Yeah.
And
which we'll get into the long-term effects of those things.
Yes, that we're still dealing with those today.
Yes.
But ultimately, you know, gentle parenting, you gotta be there for your kid. Like, it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter if to you it's not important, to them it's the world. So you just have to let them know that you're there to help them. You're there to listen to them. Their thoughts, even if it doesn't matter to you, matters the world to you. Just, you know, letting them know that their opinions and their little comments, they matter, you know. And I feel like a lot of the, you know, first generation and etc. born to immigrants, we're so used to being shut down right away, you know. The whole, I'm going to give you something to cry about. Or, you know, like, oh, that's so dumb to cry about. And, you know, we just feel...
not letting feel the emotions, which is what you're supposed to do, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of bottling things up.
Yes. And at the end of the day, they're children.
Yeah.
You know, their problems are very, very tiny compared to our problems. But they're tiny people. So, you know, they kind of equal each other out.
Yeah. Well, I think that wraps up our podcast for today. Thank you so much for opening up to us about, you know, certain hard topics and certain, you know, childhood traumas. But yeah, thank you for being comfortable enough to do that.
I'm a not over here. What do you mean comfortable? But yes, of course.
But yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you. This concludes the end of our episode today. And on that note, be good to yourself and be good to others. Stay gracious, stay kind. Until next time.